Good afternoon and welcome to Club W. Today's presentation is on mental fitness presented by Vicki Landers. We will be recording the presentation for further viewing on our YouTube channel. Additionally, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat box and we will answer those questions at the end of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Vicki now and I'll let her tell you her credentials and a little bit about herself. Vicki?
Thank you so much. Welcome everybody today to a little bit of a chat about mental fitness. Like she said, I'm Vicki Landers. I happen to be a physical therapist, but I am also an associate certified coach, as well as currently I am the acting home care director for a short period of time. But mostly I'm here today on behalf of my coaching practice and the things that I work with on people about, just their ability to get through day-to-day life. So we're going to talk, that's what we're going to talk about today, is sort of how to help yourself get through day-to-day life and how to recognize some things that might be causing you stress that you may not have even recognized. So all of the stuff that I talk about today is actually my interpretation of the work of Bruce Schneider, PhD from the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching, which was my coaching credentialing program. So before we're going to talk about stress, I want to talk just a little bit about this concept of resilience. And this is a word I think that we started to see more as we went through the pandemic and as we were, as we were having all of these disturbing things happening to us and we're walking through difficult times that were so unlike anything we've ever experienced before. And so we started hearing about resilience and, how can we improve our ability to have resilience? So let's first kind of define the word resilience. And it's the ability to recover from difficulties. So I think that's probably a pretty good thing for us to have. We want to be able to recover quickly from difficulties. We are humans and we do live through the human experience, which means we're all going to have things in our life that are challenging, things that sort of happen that are unexpected. Real recent example from my life is that my mom, who is 84, fell a couple of weeks ago and fractured her elbow. We never expected that to happen. So, we're looking at this difficulty of the fractured elbow and how are we going to recover from this, either, back to just being able to cope with what's going on. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about resilience, is a lot about it's how do we cope and how do we recover when things don't really go like we expect them to, or we're experiencing something that would be considered difficult. So when we think about things that are difficult, I want to talk a little bit about what you would consider to be stress. So these difficulties are these stressors. I like this definition, which is that something that keeps you from optimal performance. So something that keeps you from being the best daughter, the best mom, the best wife, the best employee. So stressors are those things that happen that are kind of a barrier or something you need to overcome and have some resilience towards so that you can be the best you that you can be. So when we have stress, then clearly, or we're experiencing stress, then we're clearly not functioning at our absolute best. And we're not necessarily living our optimal lives or performing in the way that we want to. So what's interesting is that what stresses one person can be totally different than what stresses another person. I'm the kind of person who likes change. I like things to be different. I like to plan. I like to come up with ways to make processes better and change things. Well, for some people, what I just said just sent them over the edge. They don't like change. They don't want to have things change. They don't want process improvements. They don't want to move. They don't want to do those kinds of things. So one of the things that I think it's important that we understand when you're working or being around other people is that other people may not recognize the things that will stress you and that you won't recognize things that might cause stress in somebody else. So it's unique to you. So when we think about stresses, I want you to think about stress as it affects you And we're going to go through some categories of stressors to help you sort of get some awareness about what might actually be going on with you. And you can always translate this to what might actually be going on for somebody else. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to talk just a bit about how to manage some of these things so that once you have the awareness of it, what can you do and to kind of help mitigate some of these things that you perceive to be stressors for you. So these categories of stressors that I like to talk about and bring to light there's 6 of them: spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, social, and environmental. So we're going to talk about each one of these. And as I'm talking about them, I'm hoping that you're thinking about how this relates to you. And is this particular influencer a stressor? Or does it contribute to your resilience? Because these are influencers, and influencers obviously can influence us in a positive way and influence us in a negative way. So as I'm talking about that, you're going to think about, well, is this influencer a stressor, or is this influencer something that actually helps me with my resilience? So the first one we're going to talk about a little bit is spiritual. Now, most people, when I say spiritual, they immediately think religion. And I'm not talking about religion. We're talking about a different kind of spiritual influencer, and that is your values, your beliefs, your purpose in life, your particular goals, your particular desires. When we talk about values, we're talking about things like autonomy and integrity and community and competence and communication and creativity and peace. And there's a whole lot of other things that people value. So when we're thinking about values and whether your values are influencing you in a stressor kind of way or in a resilience kind of way, the question is, how much are you living in alignment with your values, and how much are the circumstances in your life lining up with your values, your beliefs, your purpose, your goals and desires? Because if you're in a set of circumstances where your values and, like, say, your job don't line up, so a situation might be, so I'm from the healthcare space, so maybe you're somebody who truly values patient care over anything else, which I feel like our organization does. But we value patient care, and you go work for somewhere that is a for-profit organization, and you find out that their priority is something like paying back shareholders. And so that might misalign with your values. If you have a value of patient care being foremost and that organization has for-profit being the foremost, you have a misalignment of values. So you could see that happening in a number of different ways in your life. If you're in situations, if you're in groups that are making decisions that don't line up with your concept of, say, community, that may not line up with your values. And when that happens, you start to feel stress. And the question is, and we're going to get to this, is what do you do with that? First, you're going to have some awareness of it. And this is what the beginning slides are all about, is awareness of how these influences relate to your stress. So we're really thinking about how aligned is your daily life, what you're doing every day, with your values, your beliefs, your purpose, and your goals and desires. So one of the things that I really like people to do is to do a values assessment for yourself. There's a lot of them online. If anybody wants some links to those, I can get them for you. Really kind of establish what your personal goals are, and really start to understand what it is that feeds you as it relates to your goals and your desires, so that you can start to recognize when those things aren't present. And that's adding stress to your life because it's not influencing you in a positive way. So the second influencer that I want to talk about is the mental influencer. And this is all about, how alert you are at any given time, what you're concentrating on. Do you have good focus and awareness of what you're trying to work on? One of the things that we have so much in our life is this fractured attention. We are living in the times of, attention is something that everybody is competing for. So when we're thinking about mental fitness or mental influencer is, what kind of clarity do you have into your activity that you're doing at that moment? But also, what's the demand of the task and how interested are you in this task? So the thing that I like to, the example I like to use when I'm talking about, an influencer, a mental influencer is creating a budget. So say you've never created a budget before and you know that you need to create a budget. Say you just got married, you're trying to combine finances and you have to put a budget together before, but you've never done this. You don't know what you're doing. So you may actually get stuck on this thought of, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what's going on. And you're not actually focusing on the task of creating the budget. You're focused on the, I don't know what I'm doing. So that would be considered a mental influencer that's causing you stress. So let's say you've been married for 25 years. This budget thing is old hat. You have to do it. It's more like, okay, I got to do that again. So you're not really interested in it. It's not too demanding. It's just you're not really interested in it. So that is also a mental influencer that causes stress because you're not interested. You're not engaged in that activity. Versus say somewhere around year 5 or 6 of doing this and you're like, I got this. I know how to do it. I'm still excited about doing it. I'm still interested in it. And so that's like your mental sweet spot. The activity is not too hard. So you're not so focused on the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. And it's not so easy that it has become boring and you don't want to do it anymore. That middle ground is the mental influencer sweet spot. And it's interesting if you start to look at the activities that you have to do. Say you downloaded a new app on your phone and you're trying to learn your new app. Are you really interested in learning that new app? Maybe that's not a stressor. Maybe you don't have a lot of time and you don't want to learn a new app for managing your kid's soccer team. And that might be a stressor. So again, everybody has different stressors, different mental sweet spots for activities. And it has to do with the demand, the interest, how focused, and what kind of concentration you have towards that particular activity. And we live in a world where demands on our attention are all over the place. So if you are having too much demand on your on the mental capacity, it can, again, it's going to cause you stress. So the third one I want to talk about, so the third influencer on whether we are under stress is the emotional influencer. And the emotional influencer, first thing I want to say is that I think emotions get a bad rap. We are human. And emotions are absolutely 100% part of being human. So I would like to give you permission to give yourself grace when you have an emotion that you may be uncomfortable with, whether it's sadness, embarrassment, you're uncomfortable, it's okay to feel that way. And it's nice to recognize and say, hey, I'm angry right now. That's okay. Because anger is normal. Happiness is normal. All of these things are normal part of the human condition. When we talk about our emotions being an influencer on how stressed we are, what we find is that the more awareness we have of the emotion that we're feeling, the less stress that it causes us. What causes us stress is not wanting to have these emotions. So when you start to when we talk about the influencer or the emotional influencer, we're talking about how aware are you of your emotional expression, and how in control of your emotional expression are you, and how excited are you about tasks. And excitement is one of those emotions that that can get out of control or can be underwhelming. But that's what we're talking about when we talk about the emotional influencer. It's being aware that you do have emotions and that they influence your behaviors and your reactions. I just think the biggest thing about the emotional influencer is just accepting that that is who we are and that that is an okay way to be. And using that awareness to help channel. And when I'm going to talk at the end about, sort of channeling these things by choosing how you do express your emotions and do so in a way that makes you feel good about it, regardless of what the emotion is. So I think we're on the fourth influencer, physical influencer. So I think this one's actually pretty easy to understand. We are obviously influenced by how we feel physically. So what makes up how we feel? Well, how we're eating, our nutrition. Are we getting enough sleep? So are you really tired? So if you want to stop and think about if you're really, really fatigued, are you performing at your optimal? Are you being the best mom, wife, mother, woman, person that you want to be? Are we exercising in order to be that healthy, to have that healthy body? What is our overall health? What kind of body image do we have? And do we have injuries or illness? All of these things will affect your performance as a person if they are not optimal. Injury and illness, if you stop and think about if you have a broken elbow or you have high blood pressure and you have headaches, those are going to interfere. And they're causing you stress. You're not at your optimal physical condition. Now, optimal physical condition doesn't necessarily mean you can run a marathon, but it means how well is your body set up for the demands that you're going to place on it. Can you run a marathon today? Maybe some of you can. I can't. But can you sit in a chair at a desk all day? You probably can. We shouldn't, but you probably can. So it's how much is your physical well-being adding to the demands that you are requiring from what it is you want to do. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about the physical influencer. So we have two more influencers, the social influencer. And this one has been really interesting over the course of the pandemic because many people who were introverts were thrilled about having to stay home and not socialize with other people. This one, I think we realize everybody has different personal preferences. So each person's social situation is going to influence them differently. How often do you like to interact with other people? And when you are interacting with other people, do you like to interact with big groups of people or small groups of people? So that influences, how optimally you're performing and how you're feeling is whether your social interactions are those that are at your personal sweet spot. I think it's interesting to evaluate this. I, for a long time, thought that I was an extrovert and I was fed by big social situations. And it turns out that I love to be around people. I love to do live presentations. I love to public speak. And then I want to go hide in a hole for a little while and just be quiet and be by myself. It took me a long time to accept that that's who I was, and it is who I am. I also like to be in group meetings. So if you stop to think, are you in committees at church? Are you committees at work that you really enjoy being with? Or are you in these committees and you wish you weren't there because there's too many people? So it's something nice to recognize about yourself is that, do you have the social interactions that feed you, or are you in social interactions that actually create more stress for you? The social influencer is also thinking about your support systems. What kind of support systems do you have, and are they the ones that work for you? The research says that women need women. We have longer, healthier, better quality of lives if we have more friendships. That's generally speaking. Some people, that is not a need for them. So it's important for you to recognize, what the research says, but also important for you to recognize what's true for you as an individual and try to create situations in your life where it is that optimal for you. Whether it's one-on-one, spending time with a girlfriend, going out and exercising, spending time with your family, out camping, or, going to concerts and being around huge groups of people. Recognizing that is a really big deal towards being able to structure your life in a way that is going to work for you better so that you are, your performance in everything is more optimal. So the last influencer is the environmental influencer. And this is so funny, super timing, because I'm sitting next to a printer that just started making noise. I don't know why it's making noise, but it's making noise. So it's an environmental influencer because apparently this printer is going to start printing. So I'm having an environmental influencer because the printer started printing unexpectedly. So when you're thinking about your environment, what kind of noises are going on that are distracting you? Is the chair you're sitting in comfortable? Do you have a couch you like to sit on? How is your desk configured at home or at your office? What's the temperature in the room? Is it too hot or too cold? That was one of the things that I think we all got when we left the office spaces and we started working from home. We could control our temperature. I liked that a lot. Is it too bright? Is it too loud? Your environment makes a big difference towards how you show up. And you can make little changes with your environment that will actually improve the way you function. And you may not have even realized that could happen. So take a look at your environment, whether it's your kitchen, your living room, your bedroom, your office. Are there things that you can change in the environment that will make a big difference in what's distracting you and what's enhancing and improving your performance? So as we went through those things, for those of you who are listening, I want you to think about how those different aspects or those different influencers are causing you stress. Because it might be that you are in an office space that needs to be tweaked. It might be that you're in a job that has too much social interaction and you need to make some changes to that. It might be that you are looking for a community of people that are like-minded with your same values, and that you need a little impetus to go searching out for that. So really think through those 6 influencers and how they are playing and interacting in your own life. Because what happens when those things are not optimal is we have this energetic response to stress. So when I say energetic response to stress, what I mean is that it affects the energy with which we show up, and how we act and how we behave. It's that, you've all been to a meeting where somebody would say, yeah, they sucked the energy out of the room. That's what I'm talking about, is what kind of energy do you have? Do you have the energy that's been sucked out by those stressors? Or do you have that energy that's being added to and you're really excited about what you're doing? So there are a couple of different ways that we respond to stress. And this is that energy and how we show up. I'm not going to get really deep into this. The point that I really want to make with this screen is that we have 2 different kind of energetic responses that we can have. And if we start to have some awareness about how we're responding, we can start to make some choices. And so the catabolic reaction to those stressors, we end up feeling like we're a victim and we're at the mercy of, or we end up feeling like we're in conflict and we're defiant and we're angry. So both of those energy levels tend to break us down and wear us down and are not contributing to our resilience and our ability to have mental fitness. Whereas the other 5 energy levels are more of an anabolic building up energy level, and they are all about making sure that we are taking care of ourselves, we're taking care of others, that we're thinking about the big picture, and that we are taking those influencers and having awareness and turning them into something positive for ourselves and for others. So the point with this particular slide is that, our energy is either a breaking down energy or a building up energy, and those influencers will contribute to whether it's a breaking down or a building up kind of energy. So what are we going to do with this information? So we've got these 6 influencers, and we want to do something in order to optimize the influencers so that you do have more resilience, that you can take that bad thing that happens to you and look at it and move through it to the other side. Because as we know, bad things are always going to happen. So the first thing we want to do is have that self-awareness of what's influencing you at the moment. So a nice way to do this in the course of a day is that, 4 or 5 times a day, just stop yourself and go, what am I thinking? What am I feeling and what am I doing? And you may be having a great day, a great moment because you're outside walking and you're feeling happy and positive. Or you may be thinking that this is the worst thing ever because it is raining outside and you are sad and you are sitting in a chair not moving. So it's nice to start asking yourself these questions. And then the next question is, when you've done the objective thinking, feeling, doing, it's how are you interpreting this? Are you interpreting your situation as a negative and maybe you don't have to? And are you telling yourself a story about what's going on versus the facts of a situation? Some other things to have some awareness of, especially when we talk about the social and the environmental influencers, is that other people in your environment can suck your energy away from you and can contribute to the stressors that are not allowing you to move forward and be resilient. So you want to have some awareness of those people around you and the fact that they can influence you. They can be the ones sucking the energy out of the room. And what's interesting is that the moment that you have that realization, you are now in control of whether your energy gets sucked out of you or not. So being aware of the influencers. And the next thing is that, are you aware of whether you are reacting to a situation without thought and without intention, or are you responding to a situation with intention? So when you start to have the awareness of those 6 influencers on your stress levels, and you start being able to recognize what you're doing, so you may be able to start changing your reaction and turning it into an intentional response instead of just an automatic reaction. So this all starts with awareness of how those influencers are playing in your life. So the second thing that you're going to do once you've sort of got some awareness as it relates to your influencers is that it is super helpful if you can accept them for what they are. Now, many people balk at this because they're like, but I don't want to accept it. I'm not asking you to say that it's okay. I'm not asking you to acquiesce and say that it's all right. I'm asking you to accept that it is at the moment what it is, so that you can then start to make some choices with it. So the thing that I like people to do when they're under really big stress and they're so emotional and they're so frustrated is to say, okay, let's talk. What are we thinking? What are we doing? What are we feeling? And tell me the facts of the situation, and the facts without judgment. And sometimes we'll discover that when we are stating the facts of a situation, we are actually judging the situation. I'm going to give you my very favorite example of this. You're driving down the road, somebody cuts you off, they drive in front of you, they cut you off, and they exit the highway. So those are the facts of the situation. But you get frustrated and you get angry because they cut you off and they're, clearly they're a bad driver, clearly they're a jerk. However, what if that person was rushing to the hospital because their kid just had a wreck and was in the emergency room? They're no longer a jerk. They're no longer a bad driver. They're a person who you can have empathy with. Now, do you know why they cut you off? Nope, you don't have a clue. However, it's the story that you tell yourself that starts to create that judgment, and that judgment creates anger and irritation that was unnecessary because you really have no idea why they cut you off. The facts are they cut you off. So that's what I'm talking about with awareness and then acceptance that, okay, the person cut me off. I get to choose my reaction, which takes us to past acceptance to conscious choice. When you start to have awareness of reactions, you accept whatever the facts are of the situation, then you get to choose if you're going to take action or inaction, and the ball is back in your court. And we find as a coach, when I work with people, that when they start to have more awareness of their own conscious choices, they start to respond instead of react, and they start to choose more anabolic responses versus catabolic responses. So they start to look at the influencers in their life and choose the things that they know improve their satisfaction and improve their productivity and improve their ability to be present versus just reacting and reacting in the moment. It kind of slows things down and improves our ability to move through our lives with less discomfort. It doesn't change the fact that bad things happen, but it does improve our ability to say, you know what, that was a thing. I didn't like it. I don't like it, but I'm going to choose my reaction to it. And so this conscious choice thing is huge when it comes to mental resilience and getting through our day-to-day life. We've got to recognize, we have to have awareness, we have to accept what's going on and then start to make choices, because choices empower us to move forwards. So I've talked a little bit about a number of things today, and I'm curious, and since there's not a whole lot of you on the call right now, and I would be curious for those of you who are here as to what you learned, because it's really important whenever you listen to something like this, whether it's on the North Kansas City YouTube or you're looking at videos, that you stop and you reflect and say, what nugget did I take from this? What am I more curious about? Give yourself a moment, and then what am I going to do with this differently? How am I going to do something different tomorrow that I might not have done before that's actually going to improve your life? So I'm always curious about those things, because that's the whole purpose for me teaching things to people, is so that they do something different that makes their life better. So I want to thank you all for listening to me chat today. And thank you to North Kansas City Hospital for letting me share the information about kind of energy and stressors and some resilience concepts for you. And I hope it's been helpful.
Vicki, thank you so much for your presentation. That was excellent. I took a lot away from it. I learned a lot. I do have one question here. It's about you talking about the introvert. Do you have any suggestions on how to manage the stress when you're required to be around a lot of people in the moment?
Yeah, that's so challenging. I have some coaching clients who actually have that specific thing. And one of the things that we found has worked for them, it might not work for you, but it can work, is actually sort of doing a couple more deep breaths, not looking around the room, not looking at the people, but kind of looking down and taking some nice, slow, deep breaths, focusing inward on how your physical being is doing in the moment. And doing that periodically during those interactions, because it can exhaust the introvert having to be around so many people. The more breaks that you can take sometimes is helpful. If you can leave the room, and bathroom breaks can be super helpful. And just separate for a little bit, take some of those deep breaths, and kind of bring your attention inward seems to be kind of helpful.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, I do not have any further questions. And again, I really appreciate the, we do have another question. Somebody it's not a question, but they said, thank you so much. I definitely will take a lot from this information with me. So very, very appreciative.
Awesome.
Okay, well, Vicki, you have a wonderful day, and all the participants, you as well. And like I said, we will be putting this up on our YouTube channel for further viewing.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.